Hello everybody, I'm TheTimeister. I hope you're all doing very well, and welcome to the 4th episode of the Global Collaboration series. To give you guys a quick recap of what's happening here, Paradox Interactive have arranged for 12 YouTube creators to collaborate in creating a city. At the end, we will have built a large-scale city with many different boroughs, different architecture styles, different building styles, and at the very end of the series, a video will be released showcasing the entire build. So with that being said guys, just sit back and relax, as today I'm going to be building the downtown central business district of the city. So it's a fairly large project, lots of skyscrapers. I'm going with the American theme in this build specifically, but you're going to see as the series progresses, this city does not actually end up being just an American themed city. And this is what's so cool about this project. With there being so many different creators getting their hands on this build, you're going to see some European style boroughs, maybe even some Asian style boroughs, you know, crazy skyscrapers and infrastructure. But for my build, I'm sticking with my usual. I'm going with my usual American themed city. What's super interesting for me about this build is I haven't really gotten the chance to play around with a lot of the newer assets that are on the workshop, some super tall skyscrapers that may have come out, because as you guys know, I'm used to building small scale cities on my channel, and it's been years since I've actually built a large scale downtown. So it was kind of fun to get back into that zone, you know, with bigger infrastructure and all that crazy stuff. So this was really fun. This was an awesome project. And Paradox have given us the choice of what we wanted to build. We each had an assigned area of the city, but it was up to us to choose where or what we wanted to build. As long as at the end we had a decent looking city. With that, I had a general idea of what I wanted to build, which pertains to the downtown, but I also knew that the city wasn't going to be an American themed city all the way through. As you just watched Tazer's submission, he went for a much more modernist European theme, and that's not my expertise at all. I've never built a European city. I'm not sure how well I would fare in that kind of thing. It would have been cool to try it out, but I just wanted to play it safe and continue on with my American or North American themed city. But being aware of that and seeing what's been created so far, to make an effort to respect everybody's building styles and to try to make the downtown flow seamlessly into everybody's build surrounding the downtown, I decided to make a mixture of American style skyscrapers, such as, you know, old 60s and 70s block high rises like you would find in New York and maybe Chicago. I'm also going to mix it up with a lot of modern skyscrapers, such as skyscrapers that you would find in Asia, so like Tokyo and Beijing, maybe even in the Middle East. So it's going to be a conglomeration of a whole bunch of different architecture styles, and it's going to make for a really creative and a really dynamic skyline. And you'll see, guys, as the build progresses. I've seen the end result of this build, by the way, and you're not going to be disappointed. You're going to want to watch every episode of this series. But I can tell you guys that this downtown central business district flows beautifully with the rest of the city. Now, with me being a little rusty in creating large downtown areas, I kind of had to go with trial and error a lot here. So I was placing down buildings, demolishing them again, placing down different buildings in their place. So you're going to see a lot of that in this episode. But once I get the general skyline built and I'm happy with it, then we'll go into a little details and stuff. So we'll go right down to the nitty gritty, detailing all the sidewalks and little pedestrian areas. So that'll be a lot of fun. And what was challenging for me as well in this build, the street layout was already laid out somewhat. So as you saw in the beginning of this episode, all of the streets that were there were created by, I believe, Tazer. It might have been somebody else. I forget now as I'm editing this. But like the main streets were already laid down, and like there's nothing wrong with the way that the streets are laid out. I actually really like the way they are. But it was a little bit of a challenge for me because I'm so used to building on a simple grid pattern with me, always building American style cities. It was kind of challenging to get all the buildings to fit into like the windy roads and all that kind of setup. So when I jumped into this project, I knew I was up for a challenge, but I decided not to tweak the road layout at all. I just left it as it is, because a lot of these streets, I've never even seen on the workshop. I've never dealt with them before. Like, for example, the main avenue going right through downtown is like this super wide tram avenue. So I decided not to touch the road network at all and just build on top of what was already there. So I kind of surprised myself at the end of this build. When I zoomed out and saw the whole city for what it was, I was impressed. I mean, I'm not one to toot my own horn, but I think I fared pretty well in this challenge. And I knew going into this project, like with me building the central business district, it's what captures the most attention in a city. Like, Google a picture of any city in the world, and I guess with the exception of many European cities, like Google the name of any North American city and you'll instantly find a picture of the downtown area with all the skyscrapers, and that's generally where you'll find all of like the interesting buildings. So I knew that with me building the central business district, I was pretty much building the staple of the city. And to be fair, guys, I was kind of intimidated going into this because I knew I was working aside many very talented creators on YouTube. I had to make sure that the city was up to par, that I wasn't going to make like, an ugly area compared to everybody else. So I really pushed myself to my limits here, and tried to build something that would, first of all, fit well with the rest of the city, but would capture everybody's attention. You'll see, guys, as the series progresses, as you go through all the episodes, just how awesome this city is going to be, and I hope you find that this downtown area properly fits with the rest of this city. Now, another thing that I want to go into here is, as I'm zooming in here and placing down some smaller or narrower buildings, I made an effort to place down a lot of pedestrian areas, a lot of plazas, things like that, just to give it a little bit of a European accent. As you guys may be aware, or what I have noticed when going to Europe, is that a lot of roads in downtown areas in European cities are not even drivable. Well, they sort of are. Like, there's these giant plazas that you could theoretically just drive a car up onto, but they're designed for pedestrians only, or bicycles, or personal transport of that kind. And I made an effort to place a lot of those areas in this downtown. You typically don't find these kind of things in American cities, but like I was saying a minute ago, like with this being, I guess, a multicultural city, I wanted to fit every aspect of different areas of the world in this downtown. So from afar, you guys will notice that it's mostly American themed. I guess there's no way around that. There's no way to like evade from that Americanness. It just takes a couple of American style skyscrapers, and it's kind of hard to unsee the American style downtown in this. But if you look a little more closely, I hope you'll find the Europeanness of it as well, and I guess like the Asian aspect as well. A lot of these buildings you probably wouldn't never find in an American style city. Maybe in like Toronto or Vancouver, those are pretty modern cities in like North American standards. But anyways, I just hope that you guys will like how this downtown area fits into the rest of the city. So now guys, we'll jump into the city's central park. It's not very extensive by any means, but I thought that every downtown area needs a really nice park, and I figured that this was the perfect location for it because of its proximity to the city's central, like the main train station. So it's right below the park that I'm working on. It's kind of hidden behind my menus, but it is there. But you would have seen the construction of that train station in the first episodes of the series. So yeah, we're gonna build the park, and then I'm gonna jump into all the different plazas and I guess open areas of the downtown area. So as you're seeing me do right now, we're moving on just above the park. We have this giant slab of concrete at the footing of this building here. So this would obviously be a very important building in the city. It's one of the tallest. So I figured I would give it a nice plaza down below, a huge pedestrian area. I thought that it deserved this kind of thing. So a lot of what I'm going to be doing in the second half of this episode is this style of detailing, I guess. So like trees, decaling the area, things like that. Just general things to make the downtown area pop. But in a general sense, the main skyline is pretty much complete. There's a few little things that are going to change overall, but I guess the main infrastructure of the city, or at least the downtown area, is pretty well complete at this point. So now for a moment, I'm going to jump over to the other side of the downtown, and one of the, well, it's not really a challenge, but one of the things that I wanted to make sure to include, or I guess just to do, I wanted to bridge the gap between my downtown area and Tazer's sort of residential area. And I didn't want there to be an empty space and somebody would have had to like go out of their way to fill in all those little gaps. So I decided to go ahead and place down some filler buildings just to fill up those empty spaces and you know, to connect both districts together. And also, as you may have seen, I built a little park between both districts to act as a kind of buffer. So with that being done, I decided to jump back into downtown now and to continue on with like the open plaza construction. But one thing I made sure of is I didn't want to totally ignore the Americanness of the city. I still wanted to make lots of room for the American style of this downtown, and you can't have an American city without parking. So this is a perfect example right here. In most American cities, unfortunately, a lot of their downtown areas have been faced with some level of dilapidation. A lot of older buildings may have been torn down and replaced with parking lots. It's an unfortunate reality, as I'm sure many of those buildings were beautiful and once, you know, very glamorous. But, you know, I tried to include a little bit of realism here and place down a fair bit of parking areas. Not too much, but just enough to where you can say, okay, yeah, this is without a doubt an American-style city. And right here with me being zoomed out, you can get a good glimpse of that sort of transition area between Tazer's district and the downtown. So at this point in the build, I was pretty content with how the downtown was looking for the most part, but I still had a little bit of time in my week to expand on it. And, I just wanted to make it an appropriate size for the rest of the city as well. It was kind of challenging to know how big the city was going to end up being, especially with me being fourth in the list and in the whole lineup of 12 people. I was thinking, I think the city is going to be a decent size at the end. So with the time I had extra, I decided to expand a little bit and develop on the downtown area. And what was awesome about this, I'm going to briefly explain how we sort of went about here. If, one of the other creators before me may have already explained this, but I'm just going to re-explain it in case you missed it. So a lot, like the way this worked was Paradox Interactive have given us access to an account, a Steam account, specifically for doing this build. So we would log in, we would download whichever assets and mods we needed to build, and we would just go to town and do whatever we want. So it was kind of neat because I got the chance to play around with some assets that were downloaded before me. And it gave me a glimpse into the sort of things that everybody else builds with. Everybody has their different building style. There's no two creators who are going to use the same assets throughout a city, and it just gave the chance to everybody to explore different building styles, play around with some roads or buildings that they would have never thought of getting from the workshop. So that was really interesting. That was one of my favorite parts about doing this build. And a perfect example of that, I'm not sure if you're going to notice, beside the tall black building, I placed down these roads with trees that were lining them, but they were kind of like a plaza road, like cobblestone. Well, not cobblestone, it would be like a gray brick road. It's really beautiful, and I've actually downloaded that in case I wanted to use it in one of my other YouTube series. But yeah, it was really interesting. Part of me wishes that I was a little later in the lineup because I'm sure that some of the other creators downloaded even more mods and assets, so it would have given me the chance to play around with those too. But even with being so early in the lineup, I think we already peaked at a couple of thousand mods, maybe 2,000-3,000 mods and assets. Okay, yeah, so these are the roads that I was speaking about here, guys. So as you can see, it's kind of like a gray brick plaza road, and they're lined with trees, and they're just absolutely beautiful. I'm not too sure who the creator of these are. So maybe if somebody wants to link that down in the description, that would be great. But I just thought that they fit so perfect in many different areas of this downtown. It's incredible. So yeah, I actually really like this church. It's pretty new on the workshop, or it was pretty much brand spanking new at the time of building this. But it fits really well into this downtown, and with it being such a historical building, I made sure that all the skyscrapers and everything that were built after that kind of gave it enough room and gave it its respect, I guess. And that's one thing that I really like about cities. When they realize the value of old historic buildings rather than tearing them down, when they just build around them or fully restore them and just keep them in their place. That's something I really like cities to be doing, so I decided to do that for myself as well. And here's a perfect example of paid parking, guys. You cannot go to a North American city and expect to find any free parking whatsoever. Alright guys, so as you can see, the downtown area is nearly complete. I'm just going to finish up this particular area here. It's a newer part of downtown, as you can see by these more modern buildings. So I'm going to fill in the area between them with some parking and a sort of green space, just like a nature park kind of thing. So nothing too complicated. And like I said, this is going to be one of the newer parts of downtown, but it's also going to be one of the more luxurious parts. So, I mean, you've noticed these buildings are newer, but you can also see that they're sort of like a more luxurious style as well. So of course they're going to get their own parking lots, their own private parking. Right beside it's a parking garage, but I guess we could assume that that's more of like some public general parking, as the parking garage looks kind of older. But yeah, I mean, I actually really like this area, and it's interesting because I've never used these skyscrapers before, and I always get the feeling that this is the kind of building that you would find maybe like in the Middle East, like in Dubai or Doha or in those particular areas. They kind of give off that kind of vibe. But yeah, I actually really like them in this area. And you may have noticed a couple of other skyscrapers kind of scattered around. I just placed them down in case I wanted to expand the downtown really far out and make like this huge downtown area. But I think I end up destroying those buildings as when I zooming out, I figured, okay, I built enough and this should do the trick. So I really hope you enjoyed this build, guys, and I hope you're gonna find that it integrates well with the rest of the city. Stay tuned for the next episode of the collaboration series, as next up is Skibitth. Now, if you guys know Skibitth, you'll know that he never disappoints. I'm sure you'll find his build is as amazing as any other. So stay tuned to that, guys. And also stay tuned to the very end of this episode, as I included some various cinematic shots of the downtown area. So I don't think you'll be disappointed with that as well. So with all that being said and done, guys, I'd just like to thank Paradox Interactive for giving us the possibility of doing a giant project like this. I'm super grateful. So that is it for me today, guys. As I've said, I hope you enjoyed the build, and I hope that there will be many more like this in the future. So be sure to like this video, guys. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel for many more videos like these to come out. And also check out the City Skylines channel for many more videos, tutorials, whatever you may need that pertains to City Skylines. So that is it for me today, guys. Until the next episode, please take care and enjoy the cinematics.